Hello folks, and welcome to Real Estate Q&A. I am your host, Greg Delane, and we go over real estate issues and different ins and outs of this business. Today on my show, I have a friend that has come back. This is his second time on the show, and he is the owner, president, CEO. He sweeps out the place. He does it all. Mr. Andy Shapley, and he's with Poseidon Home Inspections. Andy, how are you doing?
Good, how you doing? Nice to be here.
Just fine. Listen, I always want to get the owners on the show because they're the people whose real sweat and blood is in their business as mine. And I'm glad to have you back on the show. And the reason Andy is back on the show, for his knowledge certainly, but because if you're getting our mailers, these are our new mailers that are out here, there are 4 companies of different people that I recommend on the back of my Every Door direct mailing, and there is Andy right there. And we're going to talk about home inspections today, why you should do them before you put your house on the market, and why you should do them when you're getting ready to buy a house, and who you're supposed to speak with. Andy, real quickly, I want you to let me know your background, how you got to the point that you opened up a home inspection company, and how long you've been doing this.
Okay, yeah. I was in the construction industry for over 20 years. My family owned a construction company, so I was heavily involved with the everyday, doing the projects, working on the projects, and after a while it gets a little hard on the knees and a little hard on the back. So I decided to kind of bring my knowledge base and my experience to a little bit physically easier profession, but still stayed within that industry. Mm-hmm. And it allows me to educate the client on the industry, on the different products, on the different techniques of things, and really just kind of go through that with the client and give them some good information and some background and some knowledge about the house they're about to purchase or they're about to sell.
Yeah, I've been on hundreds and hundreds of home inspections. And sometimes I wonder how a person would not even consider or try to get around doing a home inspection by having Uncle Willie come in and tell him the house is okay. I say, you're getting ready to spend $350,000. You're going to be tied into this for 30 years. And I never quote people's prices, so I don't know what you charge. But why wouldn't you spend $400 or $500 to spend 3 hours to have somebody teach you about the things that you don't know about the furnace, the ins and outs?
That's the important piece. It's not only going through the house and making sure we're identifying deficiencies, make sure everything's safe and secure, everything's operating properly, but it is the education. How do these products work? How do these components of the house work? Why is it important for these components to work properly? And if they're not, this is what can happen down the road. You may get somebody in there that's an HVAC expert or a roofing expert or a foundation expert, but I have knowledge about all components of the house, and that's my job, is to identify all the components of the house, know some information about them, and be able to speak to them, not only their functions, but are they done properly? If they're not done properly, how to fix them, who should get in there to fix them, and types of items like that.
All right, well, look, I got some questions I want to ask you, and these are the common questions asked or problems that home inspectors come about when they're asked from their clients when they take them out to do a home inspection. First, chimney problems.
Yeah, I would say probably 9 out of 10 houses have some issues with the chimney. And it's not to the fault of the homeowner. It's a difficult place to access. Who's climbing up on a roof, especially a second floor roof, a steep roof, anything like that, to really get a good look at that chimney, looking at the outside, the flues, the chimney cap, They're missing screened weather caps, to prevent the moisture from coming down, prevent pest infestation. Once that moisture gets down from the top down, you start to see deterioration of either the brick or the stone or the concrete block, whatever that chimney happens to be made of. And then you lead into issues with not only moisture getting into the house from around the flashings, but also deterioration of the chimney itself, allowing exhaust gases back into that house, or not exhausting properly, so you're getting backdrafting into the house, and that's a deadly situation.
Just thinking about that right away when I said chimney, wait a minute, if you don't have a fireplace, then you don't, but you do have that's coming off your furnace.
Everything, either your furnace, your boiler, water heater. If you do have a fireplace, you'll have multiple flues. So every house, unless it's a full electrical house, will have some type of chimney structure. Whether it's, it could be metal, can be brick, can be stone, it can be concrete block, any one of those types of things.
All right, what about gutters? Let's go to gutters.
Gutters, one of the simplest components of the house, but probably one of the most important. If you think about gutters, you've got hundreds and thousands of gallons of runoff coming off a house when it rains. Everything that comes off that roof is coming down into a gutter. So when you have a gutter that's either leaking at the seams, leaking at the end caps, or even if you have downspouts that come down and just end right next to the foundation, you're dumping all that water against that house, against the foundation, against steps and walkways, everywhere that the water's come down is going to cause issues. That's where you get cracking in foundations. That's where you get moisture penetration in basements. I can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've instructed people just to extend their gutter 4 to 5 feet, the downspout. When it comes down to the ground, 4 to 5 feet away from the house. And they've said, we've had water in this house for 20 years, we lived here. I said, well, put this 5-foot extension on there, cleared up their water problem right off the bat.
Wow.
So very simple. They got to be cleaned.
Yes.
You want to make sure they're cleaned, and you want to make sure that runoff is flowing away from the house and not being dumped right up against that foundation. Very key.
Yeah, I know with this last big Hurricane Sandy, that rain was coming down, and if you do, a lady asked me the other day, we were getting ready to put this house on the market, and she was looking at it and said, well, what about these trees? And I said, honey, if they didn't come down during Hurricane Sandy, I think they're kind of strong. They'll make it, because nature kind of cleans out things and straightens them out. So if you had problems with your gutters just recently, now's the time to take a look at them,
Yeah, I'm finding a lot, especially after Sandy with the wind and the tree damage, that a lot of houses that I'm going to now have gutter damage, whether they're loose or whatnot.
All right, let's talk about GFIs.
GFIs are ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs, if you want to call them that.
Yes.
And you'll find them in wet locations. You want them in kitchens. You want them in bathrooms. You want them in basements, garages. What they do is it stands for ground fault circuit interrupter. And what that does is detects the amperage between the two prongs of a plug. And if that jumps, as if you dropped a hairdryer in water, or you touched water and you're touching the hairdryer, something like that, that outlet will trip out. It's got its own sensor, and then it will trip out and cut the electrical supply to that outlet. So really important, easy safety factor, but are missing in a lot of homes. Newer homes, obviously, there's codes out there that they need to be built with these GFIs, and they're increasing them as they go along where they need to be located. But we have a lot of older houses in this area, a lot of them, and it's a simple upgrade that an electrician can do, but they're missing in a lot of areas.
So that's the GFI. I know what it is, but it's the one with the buttons on it.
Yep, they can be one of the buttons, or they can be protected at the breaker box.
Really?
They also have breakers that are GFI protected breakers.
Listen, I learned something every day. I did not know that.
Yep.
When I think GFCIs, it's the switch that is I don't know what it is, 6 feet
within 6 feet of water. Yep.
Yeah.
But that's kind of null and void now. That was the old standard. Now it's pretty much any damp location.
Okay.
Anywhere you are, damp location, which includes garages, which includes basements, you need a GFI.
So what about outside plugs at your house?
Absolutely, GFI protected for sure. GFI protected with a weather-tight cover.
There's a little steel cap thing that goes.
Again, new caps that they have there, they're called in-use covers, and they're the clear bubbles. So what happens is with the old-style weather-type caps, where the spring-loaded ones, if you plug something in, it's open and it's no longer weather-protected. The new ones that they have are called in-use covers. They flip up. They're square boxes. They flip up. You can plug something in, and then you can close them back down with the cord still plugged in there. So there you are weather tight still.
You folks hear that? I know there's probably hundreds of you out there that need to change. When did that come into play, the ones with the covers?
They've been around for a while, but that's kind of the standard now. When you get some work done, that they'll put those on there.
Okay. All right. And these are the things you look at when you go to do a home inspection?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All these.
No bath exhaust fans.
No bath exhaust fans is key. You don't see a lot because what the thought process was that if the bathroom had a window, the builder did not have to put in a bath fan.
That's not the case?
That's not the case. Because in the wintertime, are you going to keep that window open when you're taking a shower? Honestly?
Yeah, you're right.
Are you going to keep that window open? No. So I always recommend that you have a bath fan in any bath, whether it has a window or not, and you also have to make sure it's exhausted to the exterior, not into the attic space, which I find 50 to 75% of the time that the bath fan will be in there, and everybody looks, oh, great, the bath fan's in there.
And they put a little piece of tissue, and it's doing its job.
It's doing its job, and then I'll go up in the attic, and I'll remember where that was, and I'll go over and I'll dig around. If I don't see a duct coming out and dig around, I can usually find it right
Well, what's wrong with it running up to the attic?
Hot, moist air running into a cold space, condensation leads to mold growth.
Oh.
Guaranteed.
My next thing was I don't live up in the attic, but when you said mold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's hot, moist air that gets up in there. You've got a cold space. That warm, moist air hits that cold sheathing or cold rafters, anything in that nature. You start getting condensation. Condensation is moisture. You also lead to wood-destroying insects.
Yeah, but the fix is pretty simple, isn't it? Just to attach something and run it to the side or put it...
You either want to go out through the roof or out through the side of the house. Yes, it's a simple fix.
Yeah.
A lot of times you can even run them to the soffit vents. You have the eave overhangs and you've got the soffit over there. It's not the best way to do it, but at least you're exhausting it to the exterior at some point. The best way, obviously, is to go out the side wall or go out through the roof and put a proper vent cover on there.
Okay. All right, you guys learning something here? This is... I'm learning. All right. Trees, vegetation, mulch in contact with the house.
Yep. Happens a lot. People want to make their house look really pretty, and I understand that. And then when I go to inspections, I have to talk to people in reasonable language. Obviously you like the mulch there, you like your vegetation, you want a nice curb appeal with all the nice bushes around there.
Yeah.
But they're up against the house. They're up touching the house, or that mulch has been, down there for 10 years, and you keep adding a layer, and you keep adding a layer, and you keep adding a layer, and it creates an issue where you're now getting dirt, soil, wet mulch in contact with your house. That's exactly where moisture. The house is not going to dry properly. It's covered with mulch, or you've got the vegetation so close to the house and so tightly packed, there's no air flow, and it's creates a moisture issue. With moisture, you get wood-destroying insects. The Hudson Valley is a hotbed for termites. Now, they're not the only types of wood-destroying insects, but it's a hotbed. It's an area that has a lot of termite activity, and I see it all the time. And they'll only go after that moist, wet wood. They need a very, very high level of humidity to survive around their bodies at all times. So if you keep the wood dry, you're going to keep the wood-destroying insects away. But you get that mulch in contact with there, you get the vegetation in contact with the house, and you're just giving them easy access, and you're just creating an environment that's favorable for them, not for you.
We sold, Delane Realty sold a foreclosure, and either it was in Somers or, I don't know, Yonkers. But anyway, those big things that you stack your wood on, and it looks like that? Well, this thing had broken down. And this guy had so much wood stacked alongside the house, and nobody had been in the house for 3 years or something. And when we had it cleared away, it was a termite wood stock. When we pulled off some of that wood, there were so many termites. I mean,
Yeah,
It was scary.
That's a buffet for them. You created a buffet. Said, "Hey, here you go. I'm giving you your food for free. Come and get it."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
again. That's a good point of it too. Is also firewood. You don't want to stack it right up against the house. You don't want to put it close to the house.
What would be a good thing to put between it? Could it be like a tarp or something, or do you just need to get the wood away from the house?
You really want, if you're talking firewood, you just want to keep it off the ground. You want to keep it covered because you're keeping it covered. You're keeping it dry. It doesn't matter if the wood's dead or cut down. If it's not wet, they're not going to go after it. You always want to keep, with vegetation, 1 to 2 foot airspace between the house and the vegetation. I should be able to, when I go to a house and I look down the side there, I should be able to walk between the vegetation and the house easily.
Yeah.
And that gives you an indication of the airspace you want to keep there.
How can you tell the difference between a regular ants and carpenter ants?
They're a little bit different body styles.
Okay.
A carpenter ant it has a different thorax, and I'll go in there and I will actually pick them up and look at them just to make sure we identify. But usually with carpenter ants, you'll find evidence of sawdust, or you'll find a colony of them, and they're usually a bit bigger, but not always.
Under a magnifying glass, do they have little tool belts on?
Some of them do. The workers.
Yeah, the workers. Yeah. Wow. Andy, I want to talk a minute about what I think homeowners should do. As I was saying earlier, that I think it's incredibly stupid. I can see it. It's incredibly stupid for somebody to try to get around doing a home inspection when they're buying a house. And I'm not. I don't want to put. I mean, maybe your uncle was a carpenter for years, or he did construction for years, and he's owned a couple of houses, and he probably knows a lot. But does he know what you're going to be trained to look for? And certainly any attorney is not going to allow you to move forward with this contract unless you sign 2 or 3 documents saying, I give up my choice of doing a home inspection. I will not do one. I am a plumber, and I can see for myself. It's crazy to get away from $300 or $400-$500 when you're making a purchase of $350. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of that, I know sellers that need to get it done before they put their house on the market.
Absolutely.
A lot of my clients are the seniors, older people. They're empty nesters. They're selling their house that they paid 30 years for, and they're going down to Florida. They're getting away from some of these high taxes in Westchester. They're going back down south where the taxes are only $800 a year.
Oh, I wish.
But when people get older, I've found some seniors only live in 2 rooms of that whole house.
Yeah.
They're in the living room to watch Judge Judy. They're in their bedroom, and they go in the kitchen to use the microwave. They never go back upstairs. They wouldn't know what's going on in the basement. So I think it's a good thing for people to really, if you're trying to get $400,000 for your house, or the market's tough now, but I don't know where you live, but why wouldn't you spend $300 or $400 or $500 to have a guy come in, and you could have some information to show that my home has been inspected, and you can give this guy a call?
Or even with that, you say, okay, what I do is I come in and do the inspection. I do the inspections for a seller the same as for your buyer. I don't skip any parts of it. It's exactly the same process. It's exactly the same report. So now you can take that report that I've given you, and it's your punch list. And you can go down there, and when I do a seller's inspection, I can speak more candidly with the seller, the homeowner.
Yeah.
We can talk in more open terms, and we say, this is the priority. You really should go after these things, or this is, that's something you can negotiate out, or that's something that you just want to let go, and it's really not that big of a deal. But it gives you a punch list, and it gives you prioritization of what you could do to up the value of that home, to get more money for that home. Easily.
Sure. What are you going to do about all this asbestos around the pipes? Once they see it, it's going to be a major issue.
Right.
If it's loose and airborne, you might want to get it taken down now, out of sight, out of mind.
It scares people. Things like that. That's a perfect one. Asbestos, mold-like substance, anything of that nature that. It can be remediated. There are obviously companies out there that will do it, and they'll do it the proper way, and that's what I always recommend.
Yeah.
But if a buyer comes in there and they don't see that, they're not going to be alarmed. If they come in and see it, even if you say, hey, there's an easy way to remediate it, or their home inspector even says you can be remediated, people are like, no, I'm out. I don't even want to deal with it.
You can't unring the bell
right
once it's rung.
Yep.
And we were talking before the show about I have a situation right now. And as you were talking, I said, gee, I wish this guy would have had a home inspection. But you know what? I know I pointed out some things, and people are going to do what they want to do. But why would you leave money on the table if a home inspection is, most people that get ready to sell their homes, they say, you know what? I'm going to paint the trim, paint the front door. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But why would you not put $300 or $400, $500 into a home inspection so they can identify something that's going to be found when the other inspector comes in that could cost you $2,000 or $3,000 that might only be a $700 fix?
Right, exactly. Or it might even cost you the sale just all together. People may not even want to deal with it.
Wow.
It may be a small thing, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
No matter how much is explained to them, even from my part, if I'm working for a buyer and I say, this is really not that big of a deal, but it does need to be addressed.
Sure.
They say, no, I don't want to deal with it. There's so many, I got other houses to look at. I don't want to even do it.
I was in a guy's house, and we were just walking through, and he's going to put his house on the market, and I always want to go down and look at the electrical panel to see if he has 100 amp or if he's got the old 60, if he's got fuses. And when he opened up the panel, he didn't have the guard on it that covers to just show the switches.
Yeah.
And right away, I saw double tapping throughout his whole panel.
Mm-hmm.
Would you explain what double tapping or what people do that just to let, because as I was trying to explain this to the guy, I guess if I'd have had on a Poseidon home inspector shirt,
maybe
he'd have listened to me. But he was listening to a realtor and he didn't want to hear it.
Right.
But I could see it right away.
Yeah, double tapping is where you take a single branch circuit. A single breaker is meant to have one branch circuit attached to it, meaning one wire. Unless it's a 240 volt, then it would have two, but you have a double breaker. If you have a single breaker, it's meant to have one branch circuit connected to it, and that's one hot line coming into it. Double tapping is when they take a single breaker and say they've run out of room in the panel. They don't have any more room to add breakers into it, but they want to add a branch circuit for the office, and they need more power out there, or they're running something to the garage. They'll take a second line and put it in that same breaker. There's a couple of different problems with that. The first problem is the pins that are screws that are screwed down in the breaker that are meant to hold the wire. Mm-hmm. They kind of have a point on the bottom of them. So when they have one wire in there and they drill that point down, it grabs that wire and holds it tightly.
Yeah.
Now if you got two in there, you're driving that pin between them and you're almost spreading them, and you don't really catch either one of them. So they can become loose very easily. And when you get a loose wire, anything that moves around, that's when you get arcing. That's when you get fires. The other thing is you're just overloading the circuit. I mean, you've got a 15 amp circuit. Now you've instead of say whatever, you've got 6 or 10 outlets on there. Now you've got 20. It's just gonna trip constantly, and you're just creating an issue.
And that's what we were talking about earlier. If people would do a home inspection on their house before, why wait for the buyer to then say, yeah, I'd like to move forward, but I want $5,000 off because you have to upgrade your electricity. Mm-hmm. And it might just be the panel that needs to be done by a licensed electrician to give you more places, because when their home inspector opens that up and see everything double tapped, they're going to say, this is a fire hazard, this is horrible, he needs to have this whole thing done, where it's not that big of a thing, and it even sells your house more if somebody comes in and sees a nice big wood panel and a new box on it, and they still have open spaces if they want to add to it.
Yeah, and you also have, this just happened just the other day, went into a pre-sale inspection, went through the house. It was, say a father-in-law passed away, he lived there for 50 years, blah, 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 blah. Their panel that they had in the house was a federal stab block panel, it's a Federal Pacific stab block, which is a major fire hazard.
Yeah, those old, I remember
those old ones. Yeah, they're major fire hazard, and they really must be removed. You can't fix them. You can't do anything with it. But he had this panel. He did have it in there for that long, no issues. But as a buyer, if buyer came in there and see that, they're going to say, no, that's a lot of times to say I don't even want it, or hey, yeah, like you're saying.
What is it? A Federal
Pacific stab lock. It's called STABLOK.
You guys go down, if you're watching this show and you have not done anything to your house in 30 or 40 years, go down and take a look. And then call Andy. Please, call him. Call him to say, well, I think this is what it is. And let him, and if that is that old and that's in your house, you really do need a home inspection, huh?
Yeah, and that's the same thing with a lot of components of that house. It was a great house when it was built in 1950, whatever, but it's no longer a great house, and it needs to be upgraded. And it can be upgraded, and then you've saved yourself a lot of headache and a lot of problems down the line.
We say in the business all the time when we see you can't just keep putting Band-Aids on stuff. It's going to cost you. Now, it might cost you a little, and it might cost you a whole lot. But it's going to cost you, so make sure it's costing you a little and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Yeah.
Get it done right.
Yeah. Something you discovered today can cost you $500. If you let it go 5 years, it may cost you $5,000 or more.
Or the deal, and you have to stay here and pay our taxes again. I think my taxes are around $14,000 a year.
Thanks.
You know, my parents came out here from California about 2 years ago. My mom and dad, they live in Berkeley, California. Shout out to mom and dad. And my father asked me what was I paying in tax. I said around $14,000. Uh-oh. They must have heard me. That was scary. And they couldn't believe it because I think my folks pay in Berkeley, California like $1,600 a year. You know?
I don't doubt it.
You know?
I don't doubt it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, listen, Andy, this has been great. Again, Poseidon Home Inspections. What kind of upfront time do people need to call you about doing an inspection if they need one or want to get one done?
Again, depends on how busy I am. I do all the inspections myself. I only schedule one a day because I devote my entire day to that client.
Sure.
So it all depends on how busy you are. I'll try to fit you in as quick as I possibly can.
Yes.
I understand that this process needs to move fast. I work evenings, I work Saturdays, I work Sundays. So I'm going to do whatever I can to fit you in there.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. His card will be on the bottom of the screen as we're talking. Andy's a pro. He believes what he does. I would like to speak to people who are the owners of their own company. Whenever you see any of my Every Door direct mailings, and I know you've seen them, here is his card right here. Go to his website, give him a call if you're thinking about selling, or if you are looking at homes now and you've made your offer and you guys have to do a home inspection, call him. Good guy, he knows what he's talking about. And make sure, because you know what? I always say experience is the difference. They say, what's the difference between a real estate agent and an associate broker? It's experience. Experience is the difference.
Yeah.
What's the difference in a guy whose family's had a business and then he opened up his own? He's been doing it years. It's experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Andy, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.